Bob Cousy top rope. So I just saw this. This is the Coos. I love Bob Cousy, but he's an angry Bostonian. Tatum is on the cover of Sports Illustrated this month. Any experts that I've read lately have chosen him in the top 5 and sometimes number 1 in the effing world. Now, Kerr is telling the world he doesn't agree. In a 40-minute game, you can't find 5 minutes to play somebody in a team without hurting yourself. What Kerr did last week, he was in no danger of losing the game. But in this case, you go down by 17. He's worried about losing the game. And to not let Tatum get off the bench, to me, there's got to be some kind of bias against him or against the Celtics. He's not alone. He's not alone there. I'm like, what? He certainly had the opportunity to assess Tatum close up as an opponent. Now he's got him. I've been through these emotions from a coaching standpoint. In 1973, I coached the American team, played against the Russians, who had just beaten us in the 72 Olympics. I had Bill Walton, Eddie DiGregorio, Bobby Jones, George Karl. I had a pretty good unit. So I've been through the emotions from a coaching standpoint, what you deal with in international competition. Not playing Tatum at all says to the world, not only is he not top 5, he's not good enough to get into a close game. I can't figure out what Kerr's thinking. He's done it twice, so he obviously feels strongly about it. He must think Tatum is a detriment. I don't see how he can feel that way and know anything about basketball. I love Bob Cousy. I will defend Bob Cousy playing against plumbers until the day that I die. But one, there's a little bit of truth to what he's saying in that there's a world where Jayson Tatum is a detriment. Stop looking at international basketball through the lens of the NBA. It is not close to the same. Looks the same, feels the same. It's not the same. It's officiated far differently. Far differently. It literally takes you as a player who has actually played professionally overseas, it takes you an entire season to feel in any way comfortable with anything that's done. Anything. And oh yeah, by the way, no one thinks Jayson Tatum's a top 5 player in the world. Being first team All-NBA does not mean you're a top 5 player in the world. Okay, he's not in the solar system of Luka Doncic. Not close. Do you know why? Jayson Tatum doesn't make others better. Jayson Tatum is a great scoring wing. He scores. Is he better in international competition? Is he as efficient? Is he as dependable as Kevin Durant? No! No one thinks that. That's basically what it is. Like, who would you choose? Kevin Durant, who's 35 years old, won an MVP, won a couple NBA Finals, and in the NBA Finals, he actually produced, as opposed to Jayson Tatum, who was terrible in both NBA Finals. And I think Jayson Tatum's really good. But again, we're looking at through the eyes, the prism of the NBA. Why are we doing that? Why would we do that? Because that's what we do. In the NBA, the 5 best players are not named Jayson Tatum. But just because they're a top 5 player, means a top 10 player in the NBA, does not mean in any way that we should view the Olympics through the prism of the NBA. It's a different game, dude. And oh yeah, by the way, we won. And every time you go to the bench, you're taking somebody's minutes away. It's a lot like surgery. You know, the more times you go in, the more times you run the risk of infection. They won. They've looked great. He finally looked better. And oh yeah, by the way, here's the last part to it. There's a pretty good chance that Jayson Tatum is fighting it. Right? They came back and won that game because they shared the ball, because they defended with great energy. They were super physical. It was a grown man game. He is not a grown man in comparison to those other dudes. But listen, if it fulfills your desire to have him go in there for 5 minutes, by all means. Do you think Jayson Tatum wants to play 5 minutes? No. And what happens with guys that usually play 30 minutes, 35 minutes a game, and they play for 5 minutes, condensing what you do into that, it never works. It's so hard to do. Mark Stein joins us, NBA reporter and writer. Of course, he has his own Substack called The Stein Line. Then he has a podcast with Chris Haynes called This League Uncut. He joins us now in the herd on Fox Sports Radio, iHeart Radio app. Am I wrong? I feel like all of these people who are commenting on Jayson Tatum are one, they're looking it through the prism of the NBA, and they're not realizing how tough this competition actually is.
Well, the reality is, with apologies to Bob Cousy, the world is not thinking about Jayson Tatum's minutes. Celtics fans are wondering and thinking about Jayson Tatum's minutes. Nobody in the, quote, world is really focused on that. And the reality is just the fact that, if this is, Bob Cousy comes out today with all this criticism, it just shows you, it's just another illustration of Steve Kerr, they are never expected to lose. So it is the most second-guess coaching job you can probably have right now because they did almost lose that game. And everybody's going to have an opinion, but the coach is going to do whatever he thinks he has to do to win. And look, if you want to really register a concern, the concern is, what is this doing for Tatum's psyche in terms of 2028? Is he going to want to come back to this team? That, to me, is a valid concern. But Steve Kerr is not going to be coaching the Olympic team in 2028. So I'm sure he's not really worried about that right now. He's just trying to figure out how to win so he doesn't come home with a loss that, will be on his resume forever. So, that's really... And again, I thought the United States was past wake-up calls. I thought they had found another gear. I did not expect them to struggle the way they did yesterday, but they did not defend anywhere near the level they needed to for three quarters, and it almost cost them. To their credit, they were down 17, 15, 11, whatever it was. They faced all these deficits and found a way out. They survived amazingly. So, they got out of what looked like the worst-case scenario. But, the other thing here, too, is Jayson Tatum has shot the ball poorly from distance for a long time now. It started in the playoffs.
Here's the thing, okay? I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark. Again, what you're saying is, not you, what people are saying is, more about players that he has coached for a month than he does. That's what you're saying. It just, again, that's your.
And that's the way it all. And look, you're in for it now too. Everybody can coach. That's the world we live in. Every single person in the world can coach. They think they can. So, and Steve Kerr knows what he signed up for. He knows he is unless they win every game by 25, he is going to be second guessed loudly and royally. He knows the deal. He was an assistant to Greg Popovich, so he's already seen it and lived it firsthand. I went with that team to China in 2019. They finished in 7th. Now, the roster was nowhere near what this roster is, but a United States team with NBA players finishing 7th in a World Cup. Steve Kerr was on that staff, so he knows what this is like. He knows what he signed up for, and everything you do will be second-guessed. But he survived it and got the win, and now they're one win away.